Okay, let me share my screen. So, my name is Maria, and I cannot figure out how to get my presentation to do it the right way that you showed on Canvas for the so that you can see the speaker notes. So, I'm just going to do it this way, and hopefully it's okay. Um, but let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so Okay, so the topic that I chose to go over, oops, the topic that I chose to go over for this project is the humanistic theory. It is one that I found interesting because my minor is industrial organizational psychology. So I'm doing the human resource management certificate, which is the main reason I'm in this class, to learn a little bit more about psychology and business and how they relate to one another. And so I found this theory to be um, interesting and wanted to learn more about it. So just to um, give a little background and example, in Brother Embree's lecture, we learned about this hotel called the Taj Mumbai. I probably butchered that, but this hotel had factors that were different than the other hotels that were affected by this shooting that went on, as Brother Embry explained. So, one factor that was different than others is the recruitment process. They would recruit from poor rural areas and they would go to the lower tiered business schools. And because of that, the people who were hired felt like they were trusted and they were super grateful for the job that they had, which I'm sure you can imagine, like if they went to like a higher tiered business school, they would probably be less grateful. So that was one thing that was different. Another thing that was different was the central mission at this hotel was to delight their guests. And that was taught to all of the employees. It was a mission and a goal that each of them had, and that they were, it was like drilled into them. They knew it very well. They wanted to get to know the guests and make them happy in whatever ways that they could. And they would fulfill those needs that they found out about without the management having to look over them. And so that kind of leads us to the third contributing factor to their difference, which was the immediate recognition. So um, the this hotel, when the employees were found doing something awesome, they were immediately recognized by management and they were given gratitude and respect. They were just rewarded for um, their good deeds and good work, not with money, but with this recognition. And this led the staff to feeling like they had an honor. This job was their calling. They felt like they had a purpose in this job, and so they would work hard. And when this shooting happened, they saved those people. They saved many lives beyond what anyone would ever expect out of a hotel, which is super amazing. And so, those people, they lots of them died doing this job. And so, why do we do hard things? Why do we do crazy things? Is the question that I was thinking of when studying for this, and it's a huge part of the humanistic approach. So, um, oh, my laptop's gonna die. The question about this for this theory, is those questions: what motivates people? Why do we do hard things? In the classical perspective that we learn about. Sorry, I'm just gonna plug in my laptop. Classical perspective that we learn about is very different than this. In the before we learn about this humanistic perspective, we went over the classical perspective, and they would say that money and efficiency is why we would do hard things. And this approach kind of questions that, and I love it. It's like, is it is it joy? Are we doing it for the challenge? Are we doing it for meaning, creation, ownership, identity? What else could be a motivating factor for people? Because we know that when we're more motivated, the people are going to be more happy and there's going to be more production. And I love that this humanistic approach says it's more than just money. It's more than just wanting to get the job done. So this theory came about around the 1920s, 1930s, and challenged that classical theory. So after the World War II, the workforce was more educated and kind of pushed organizations to consider individual worker rights and needs. And this shift marked the foundation for this human perspective in organization theory. So we know that individuals like being recognized and want to feel important. Interpersonal and group relationships also significantly impact productivity, and leaders who foster autonomy and responsibility are proven to be way more effective. And so that's why this is an important theory. And a TED Talk that we watched in preparation for learning about this theory was by, I'm going to butcher his name, but Dan O'Reilly. His TED Talk was titled, "What Makes Us Feel Good About Our Work?" And so, what is the real fruits of our labors is kind of the question that was asked. And he presented two of his eye-opening experiments. And one of these experiments was it involved a Lego building. And the Lego experiment, there was two conditions. One was a meaningful condition where they would get to create a new Lego product each time. And the other condition where they would watch them take apart the Lego that they had just built and then build that again. And so just that's kind of just a broad way of describing this experiment, but it showed that the relationship between the love of Legos and how many Legos were made was very strong. But when they were building the same thing over and over again, that relationship was not as strong. They no matter how much people loved Legos, it didn't affect how many Legos they built because they were just building something that they had already made and it was destroyed right in front of them. And so that was just a very interesting experiment. And the other experiment went over the IKEA effect, and just an introduction to this. I know it's not gonna work. Okay. Just an introduction to what the IKEA effect is.
The next part, I want to show you something about the positive motivation. So there is a store in the US called the IKEA. And IKEA is a store with kind of okay furniture that takes a long time to assemble. And I don't know about you, but every time I assemble one of those, it takes me much longer. It's much more effortful. It's much more confusing. I put things in the wrong way. I can't say I enjoy those pieces. I can't say I enjoy the process. But when I finish it, I seem to like those IKEA pieces of furniture more than I like other ones.
Okay, I'm sure we can all relate to that with IKEA furniture or many of the things that we build. And this kind of IKEA effect where he talks about, the harder that you work for something or when you create it yourself, you tend to love it more. You tend to appreciate it more. And so with this idea of the IKEA effect, there was an origami experiment. And they had people essentially build origami. And the general idea, the finding that they had was that the builders were 5 times more likely to buy their origami pieces than the people who were just evaluating the origami pieces. And this finding was even greater when the origami pieces that were made was harder to make. So when when the builders kind of struggled while they were making it, they were more likely to buy it. And the people who were looking at it were less likely to buy it when it was harder to make because it tended to also be uglier, is what he was explaining. And so this is kind of just another example he gave was like when with your kids, with your own kids. Many of you who have kids would say that you love your children. You would do anything for them. They are super, super valuable to you. Um, Even if other people don't see it that way, like when another person, you know, were to like try to sell you their kid, you probably wouldn't be as eager to, hop on that because you value your own kids more. And the idea behind that is that those kids are your own work. Your kids are yours, and so that's a factor in why you love them so much. Um, okay, and kind of shifting gears. So, another study that was done, this one's very popular. It's one that I've studied before in industrial organizational psychology, the Hawthorne studies. So this one looked at lighting and like working conditions and the effects that that had on the productivity of workers. And the general findings of this study was that there was less of an impact on the workers with lighting compared to attitudes and relationships at work. It just really goes to show that human relationships are so, so important and perhaps even more important than, your actual environment are the people that you're working with and those relationships that you have with those around you. Um, Another study, or another theory, I guess. So Douglas McGregor had this theory X, theory Y thing, and theory X says that like workers just dislike work and they only need external validation, whereas theory Y says that workers are willing to work towards organizational goals and can self-direct. And so the idea here is that when we shift our view to theory Y, um, we are acknowledging the employee potential that is there, and um, yeah, that we can have greater success and more motivation and treat our employees better. And this relates to an important factor here, which is communication. Communication is super important in this perspective. It's very different than the classical perspective that we also had talked about, where it's a top-down approach. The humanistic perspective views communication as a dynamic tool. It supports flow of communication in all directions, whether it's the boss talking to someone below them, vice versa. Like communicating is super important, and it really taps into the full potential of employees, and creates better creativity and productivity overall in a company. Um, and so, knowing all of this is important. We want companies to understand the importance of motivation, um, and understanding this importance could change how we recruit people, could change how we assign jobs to people, and what those jobs are, the actual assignments, and what we're going to do to reward people, um, and so when we do those things and make those changes, it can make a better company. It really goes to show company success. I mean, when we are looking at a company who isn't looking at motivation, like McDonald's, for example, they're a very successful company, but in a different way. When we have a company using the humanistic perspective, they value their employees. They have greater loyalty and productivity. Less people um, are quitting, less turnover, because these jobs are people who can't just be replaced. These are valuable people, and many companies that are successful and have those greater jobs, um, or greater tasks in jobs, they um, it really just goes to show that the company is more successful. And yeah. So just to end my presentation with um, a gospel uh, point of view. Um, Elder Bednar talked about this as well. One of our apostles, he says that leadership is very important. There was this one of the sources that I added, besides our own, was this talk that Elder Bednar gave, where he describes the importance of motivation and creating understanding when you're in a leadership position, because the people that you're working with, um, you want them to be motivated, and you want them to feel understood, and you want to understand them, and you want those good people to have, in order to have a really successful long-term organization. And so he just kind of solidifies what we've learned about this theory and why this theory is important, and why treating people like humans, and giving them the resources that they need to feel valued and safe and able to make the most out of their work is just very important. And here's my works cited, including the things that we like, our textbook, and then the study that I found for the Hawthorne effect, and theory Y, theory X, and the Elder Bednar talk. And yeah.